Okay, so you're really looking to level up your English skills. And from what we've seen from all the stuff you've sent us, it's clear you're living in a world where being good at English opens up so many possibilities, like for jobs, education, or even just like connecting with more people from around the world. But what really stood out to us is this feeling of like, where do I even begin? Like there's just so much information out there. It's overwhelming.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that combination of really wanting to get better at English, but then you're also faced with this like mountain of resources, right? And it's hard to know what's actually going to work for you.
Totally. Yeah. And for this deep dive, that's exactly what we're going to try to help you with. We've gone through all the stuff you've given us, and our goal is to pull out the absolute most important strategies and the most practical tips we could find, and then point you to resources that we think can really make a difference. We want to help you cut through all the noise and just give you some really clear steps you can take.
Yeah, it's like giving you a roadmap to help you navigate this whole process, and make you feel more confident along the way.
Okay, so let's start by talking about some of the roadblocks that people often hit when they're learning English. One thing that we saw come up again and again is that people are really scared to actually speak English. It's not just about like knowing the grammar rules and having a big vocabulary, is it?
No, not at all. There's often this real fear that people need to work through. Like, think about it. You're putting yourself out there, trying to get the pronunciation right, and worrying about making mistakes while you're talking to someone. Plus, it's easy to feel like you just don't have enough words to say what you really want to say.
Right. It's that feeling of like, you might mess up and people will judge you, which makes total sense. And then there's another big hurdle that I think we can all relate to, and that's just like actually staying consistent. You start out all excited to learn English, but then, well, life just happens, and suddenly you're not practicing as much as you wanted to.
Oh, that's so important. Learning a language really does depend on doing it regularly. Even if you only have like 15 or 20 minutes a day, doing a little bit each day is way more effective than trying to cram a ton of studying into one day. It's all about creating a habit that you can actually keep up with.
So it's more about slow and steady progress over time. Okay, and then there's the giant elephant in the room, English grammar. All those tenses and prepositions and articles. Sometimes it feels like you're just trying to solve this impossible puzzle.
Yeah, it's funny. When you look at how people learn languages, those things you mentioned, tenses, prepositions, and articles, they almost always come up as the biggest trouble spots. And it's understandable. They're like the building blocks of English, but getting them right can feel super hard for a lot of people.
For sure. And on top of all of that, you've got like a million apps and websites and courses all telling you they're the best way to learn English. It's just this huge mess of stuff online. How are you supposed to figure out which ones are actually good for you?
Yeah, having so many choices can actually make it harder to choose, right? Because you're like, wait, which of these resources are actually good? And which ones will actually work for me and help me reach my goals? It's a lot to think about.
Okay, so we've talked about some of the challenges you might be facing. Now let's switch gears and talk about how to build a really strong foundation for your English learning. If you're just getting started or if you're feeling kind of lost, what are some of the first things you should do?
The very first thing I would say is to get really clear on why you're learning English. What are your personal goals? Are you doing it to get a specific job or maybe to study in another country? Or perhaps you want to travel and be able to talk to people from different cultures, or maybe it's even simpler than that. Like maybe you just want to learn something new and grow as a person. But whatever it is, knowing your why, that reason behind it all, it's going to give you a direction to go in, and it'll help you stay motivated when things get tough.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like having a target to aim for.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have that target in mind, what should you do next?
Well, once you know what you want to achieve, it's super helpful to figure out what your current level of English is. And luckily, there are a bunch of free tests you can take online that can give you a good idea of where you're at. It's kind of like taking a starting measurement before you start a workout plan,
Yeah, like taking a snapshot of your current skills. Okay, I get it. And then thinking practically, how do you actually start fitting English practice into your life without it feeling like a chore?
Well, that's where creating a consistent routine comes in. And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. Even just setting aside like 15 to 20 minutes every day to practice can make a huge difference over time. The key is just to do it regularly. Those shorter, consistent bursts are way better than trying to do a ton of studying all at once and then burning yourself out.
It's that whole idea of slow and steady wins the race, right?
Yeah.
And when it comes to actually understanding how the language works,
Yeah.
where should you focus your energy?
I'd say it's really important to make sure you've got a good grasp of the basic grammar rules. Whether you use a good grammar book or an online course, understanding the structure of English, the nuts and bolts of it all, is going to make it so much easier to learn new words and build sentences.
All right, it's like you need the blueprint before you can start building the house.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about vocabulary now. What are some effective ways to start growing your word bank?
Okay, one really simple method is to try and learn a few new words each day, maybe like 5 or so. But the trick isn't just to memorize the definitions, it's to actually use those new words in sentences that are meaningful to you, because that's what helps those words stick in your brain.
Oh, so it's not just about passive learning. You have to actually use the words to make them stick. And are there any tools that can help people do this kind of active vocabulary practice?
Yeah, definitely. Flashcards are a classic for a reason. And nowadays you've got some great apps like Anki and Quizlet that do the same thing, but digitally. And they often use these fancy algorithms that show you words at different intervals to help you remember them better.
I've heard those apps can be really effective. So beyond just learning individual words, is there a more strategic way to go about building vocabulary?
Absolutely. It can be really helpful to learn words that are related to each other, like in themes. For example, if you know you're going to need to order food at a restaurant soon, you could spend some time learning all the words related to that, Or if your job is in tech, you might focus on learning vocabulary specific to that field. It just makes the learning more relevant to your life.
So tailoring what you learn to your specific needs and interests. Okay, and reading is something that people always recommend for learning a language. How does reading help with building vocabulary?
Reading is amazing for vocabulary because it shows you how words are used in real situations. Start with something that's not too difficult for your level, like maybe some simplified readers, children's books, or even blog posts about things you like. And as you get better at understanding English, you can slowly start reading more challenging stuff. The cool thing is that you'll naturally come across new words while you're reading, and you'll see how they're used in context, within actual sentences and paragraphs.
So you're seeing the words in action and understanding how they're actually used. And I remember you mentioned a really clever trick earlier that I thought was really interesting.
Oh, yeah. You could switch the language settings on your phone to English. It might feel a little weird at first, but honestly, you'd be surprised how many new words and phrases you pick up just by using your phone every day. It's like you're learning without even realizing it.
That's a brilliant idea. It's like passive learning built into your day. And what about making the whole learning process a bit more fun? Any ideas there?
Absolutely. Listening to English songs and following along with the lyrics can be a super fun way to learn new words. Plus, it helps with your pronunciation too, because you're connecting the words to the music and the rhythm, which can make them easier to remember.
Love it. Okay, so we're getting our vocabulary bigger and bigger. But what about understanding spoken English and getting better at speaking ourselves? How can we work on those skills?
So the key here is to surround yourself with spoken English as much as possible. Make a conscious effort to just hear it all around you, podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube videos, news broadcasts, anything in English will do.
But it's not enough to just have it playing in the background. You have to actually engage with it.
Exactly. You got to do active listening. That means try repeating phrases you hear, jot down notes on the main points of what's being said, and definitely write down any new words or phrases you come across. It really helps you pay attention and process what you're hearing.
It's like having a conversation with the audio instead of just letting it wash over you. And for those of us who learn better by watching things, what's a good approach?
Watching movies and TV shows in English is another fantastic way to improve your listening. You could start by watching with subtitles in your own language, then switch to English subtitles, and eventually, as you get more comfortable, try watching without any subtitles at all.
So you're slowly weaning yourself off the subtitles. That makes a lot of sense. But speaking, now that's where a lot of people get really nervous. What are some tips for overcoming that fear?
Finding someone to practice speaking with can be super helpful. And there are all these cool apps now like Tandem, HelloTalk, and Speaky that connect you with native English speakers who are also trying to learn your language. So it's a win-win. You can help each other out.
Oh, I like that. It feels a lot less intimidating than trying to talk to random strangers.
Yeah.
But what if you can't find someone to practice with right away? Are there any other things you can do?
Well, you could always talk to yourself in English. I know it sounds a little silly, but it actually works. Just stand in front of the mirror and talk about your day, your plans, your thoughts, anything. It helps you get more comfortable forming sentences and hearing yourself speak English out loud, and you don't have to worry about what anyone else thinks.
Right, so it builds your fluency and helps you get over that fear of speaking. Okay, and what about getting better at writing in English? Any advice there?
Keeping a journal in English is a fantastic way to improve your writing. Just write about whatever's on your mind, your experiences, your feelings, your goals, whatever. It not only helps you practice your writing, but it also helps you start thinking in English, which is a big step.
It's like training your brain to connect your thoughts to English words.
Cool. And if you want some more focused practice with feedback, what are some options? Oh, there are some really great websites where you can take live online classes with English tutors. Sites like Cambly, italki, and Verbling are pretty affordable, and they let you practice speaking one-on-one with a native speaker, and they can give you personalized feedback, too.
Sounds like a good way to get targeted support and work on specific things you're struggling with. So we've talked about a few online resources already, but there's just so much stuff out there. What are some of the absolute must-have tools and platforms you'd recommend?
If you like learning in a more fun and interactive way, you might enjoy apps like Duolingo, Babbel, and Memrise. They break down the lessons into smaller, bite-sized chunks and use game-like elements to keep you motivated and make it feel less like studying.
Combining fun and education. Now that's a good idea. And what about some good free resources that you'd recommend?
YouTube is a gold mine for free English lessons. Seriously, there are so many great channels out there. Channels like English with Lucy, Engvid, and Rachel's English have tons of videos covering everything from grammar to pronunciation to everyday conversation.
I've heard great things about those channels. And for people who want some help with their written English specifically, what would you recommend?
Oh, Grammarly is a lifesaver for that. It can help you catch grammar mistakes, spelling errors, and even punctuation problems. And the best part is it often explains why something is wrong, which helps you learn from your mistakes.
Instant feedback is so helpful. And for people who want a more structured learning experience from a reputable source, what would you suggest?
The BBC Learning English website and their app are fantastic. They have news articles that are written specifically for English learners, plus engaging videos, quizzes to test your understanding, and really clear explanations of grammar points. It's a really well-rounded resource.
So there's a lot to learn there. And for people who love listening to podcasts, what are some good ones for learning English?
Oh, there are so many great ones. 6-Minute English from the BBC is awesome if you like short, focused episodes on interesting topics. English Learning for Curious Minds is another one I love. They talk about all sorts of fascinating stuff while naturally teaching you English vocabulary and grammar. And then there's All Ears English, which is great for learning conversational American English and getting tips on how to sound more natural when you speak.
Wow, so many great recommendations. And for those little daily reminders and tips, are there any other resources you'd suggest?
Following some Instagram accounts that share daily English tips can be a really nice way to keep learning throughout the day. They often post these little bite-sized nuggets of information that are easy to digest, It's a great way to reinforce what you're learning and pick up new vocabulary and grammar points without feeling overwhelmed.
So it's like a little boost of English learning throughout your day.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground today. We talked about getting over that fear of speaking, the importance of practicing regularly, and how to tackle those tricky grammar rules. We also talked about those essential first steps of setting goals and figuring out your current level. And then we explored all sorts of ways to build your vocabulary, like through active learning, thematic study, and even just by changing the language settings on your phone.
And we talked about how important it is to get good at listening and speaking, by actively immersing yourself in English, finding a language partner, and even practicing by talking to yourself. And we explored all those amazing online resources out there like interactive apps, helpful YouTube channels, grammar tools, and engaging podcasts. It's really exciting how much is available now. It really is. And we wrapped it all up by talking about the things that will help you succeed in the long run. Being patient with yourself, not being afraid to make mistakes, making English a part of your daily life, finding ways to enjoy the learning process, practicing consistently, and tracking your progress to stay motivated.
It all comes down to figuring out what works best for you and then making those things a regular part of your life. It's about finding a rhythm that you can stick with.
So, as you continue on your English learning journey, here's something to think about. What's one area where you feel the most stuck right now? Is it using prepositions correctly? Or maybe it's starting conversations with native speakers. Whatever it is, pick one specific strategy we talked about today that you think might help with that particular challenge. Maybe it's trying out a new vocabulary app that focuses on prepositions. Or maybe it's practicing that mirror technique every day to build your speaking confidence. Whatever it is, commit to trying it out this week. And think about how focusing on just that one thing and doing it consistently might have a ripple effect on the part you're learning. Because sometimes those small, consistent efforts are what lead to the biggest transformations down the road.
Absolutely. It's like building a house brick by brick. Each small effort contributes to the final structure.
Exactly. All right, well, that's all we have for today's deep dive. We hope this was helpful and gave you some concrete things to try out in your own English learning journey.
We're excited for you to keep learning and growing.
We'll see you in the next deep dive.
See you then.